Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the TGS Anniversary Tournament. Today we've got a few matches out on the bracket. My name is Sticula. Joining me will be Chief. Starting to become something of a bit of a regular thing, me and you here for the TGS events, and it's been a real blast so far. Apologies for the delay earlier. We had a lot of matches go the distance, and well, for the first two teams, their matches have been a little bit swifter. Arriving here in the winner bracket final, we had a little bit of an upset. Myself and Chief were talking a little bit about what our expectations might have been, which teams we thought were going to make it through. Unfortunately, our previous winner of the last month's event did not actually play this one, so we want to have an opportunity for maybe somewhat of a two times winner situation. We'll have VALORS and Quintessential Gamers here in the winners bracket final.
And even our runner-up isn't here today, too. That was Phantom Legion. We saw them on broadcast 3 times. They were kind of that dark horse team, and I think they became a fan favorite pretty quickly. So a little disappointing not to see them in play today, but VALORS and Quintessential, they're the rosters that have found themselves seated in this upper bracket grand finals. And we were talking, again, as you mentioned, off air about Wrecking Crew, the roster that we assumed to be in this exact same position. They would end up falling to Quintessentials, kind of that upset that nobody really saw coming. That was a 7-2 victory for Quintessentials. And the match before that, that was against Imperium Esports, also a 7-2. Now, VALORS, kind of the spearhead roster for us, the one that we assumed to move forwards right away. Well, they would have just an easy run, a 7-2 and a 7-3. But moving on to this best of 3 series, well, that means we have to start setting us up in our battleground. And our best of 3 goes underway with the map bans.
Yeah, we've got the standard maps as you would expect. I'm sure there's a few kind of groans out in the crowd.
Oregon.
Yep, it'll be Oregon again, Clubhouse once more, and finally the decider being Cafe Dostoevsky. I wish Cafe was one of the first 2 maps because I want to guarantee that we see it. I've been having a lot of good experiences casting, watching, kind of analyzing Cafe recently, how the map works, how teams in a tournament environment like this are going to approach it. But we'd just like to say a quick thanks to TGS for allowing this event to go forward and for having myself and Chief back once again. TGS is Canada's leader in esports, providing the first gaming stadium in Canada in Vancouver, British Columbia, if you live near the area. If you're looking for the next big thing in competitive gaming, TGS have got you settled. The team at Gaming Stadium are leaders in online esports tournaments, and you can check out the action at tgs.gg if you'd like to learn more and keep up to date on what might be more Rainbow Six tourneys coming soon.
You know, Reese, you're talking about how Cafe is starting to become more refreshing, but we saw yesterday and we talked a bit on a different Canadian broadcast about how both our first map of the day, as what I've always called Borgate and Clubhouse, are starting to get a little bit more refreshing. You know, they're like a nice cold glass of water. We've seen teams start to innovate and create brand new strategies. One of those is kind of paying homage to the original iteration of Oregon. It's the extensions up into T3, but we've seen teams find new ways of holding those positions, creating rotations into North Attic, as well as Clubhouse, starting to allow Thatcher to make it on through because teams are realizing Maverick and Habana are far too powerful, and there are new and old ways of dealing with that Thatcher. Remember bandit tricking? Maybe 3 years ago, everyone under the sun was going for bandit tricks, and all of a sudden, teams forgot it. Why? Because Thatcher was banned. There was really no need to do something like that, and teams are now starting to return to their roots and bringing back old strategies. And again, it is so refreshing. And then you have teams like Mystic coming into the mix saying, you want to have a strategy? I'm just going to rush you.
That's a fair point to make, and even Cade tricking really isn't possible in the current state because there's almost always a Maverick, especially on the 3 maps that we've got here in the winners final. Quickly, I'd just like to introduce you to the 2 teams that we've got on display. For Valor's side, a little bit more experience. You might have seen a few of their players compete in various Canadian events and perhaps maybe in ranked or on Twitter. In general, their roster will be Badger, David, Gingy, Beamed, and Hixer. few familiar names for myself personally, a lot of players that you will see at the top level of ranked, and they have pretty much gotten their way through the tournament so far. Very solid performance. Valor has had a 7-2 in the first round versus No Brains, and a 7-3 to follow that up against Overture. Now, as we move over to Quintessential Gamers, I think this is where there are some players that me and you both know, and a few fresh faces that are stepping in, notably Serafina, Sheena coming in, but the experience that we've got here, myself and Chief, has got to be stacked behind Abadu, Mai, and Emilio.
And there's actually a lot of teammates in this series. We saw all old Visionary players. Mai was in Visionary for, I think, 2 play days, and they were instrumental as an entry fragger. Abadu was a Visionary player. Badger was a Visionary player. So a lot of good camaraderie and friendships in this lobby. But unfortunately, it's about to devolve into chaos as friends are about to become enemies, and they're going to have to do best. They're going to have to do battle. They have to do their best and make sure that they find themselves moving on in this upper bracket final to propel themselves into that grand final. We start to get underway here in Oregon, and unfortunately, the man that is always banned, Thatcher, finds himself instantaneously yeeted again.
I mean, yeah, we were just talking about him, and there he goes. Not going to be able to stick around here on Oregon. The second ban, I think you could see maybe something in the flame of more hard breach. Removing the Maverick could be an idea here. It all depends on what you're going to set up for those defender bans, because when you ban the Maverick, generally you also got to take out the Cade, something of a responsibility, but we'll actually have the Ace taken off the board, which is something I'm a big fan of. You're going to limit the ranged hard breach to only one single operator, just being the Habana, which can be important in some of the attacks, as we've seen the meta develop in the modern day. Thermite opening up the games wall coming in from the walk-in closet really isn't too favorable, because that could set you up in a situation where somebody lurks in Zig down below at the bottom of the white stairs, and then they can kind of roam and rotate around and toss a nitro up to the classroom ceiling, and that does not make hard breaching very easy now, does it, Chief?
Not at all. And you know what? I'm a little sad that Flores isn't available, but in 2 weeks' time, Flores can be playing. So if you come back in a month for our next tournament, you can absolutely lock in that operator. And Flores on Oregon is absolutely terrifying. If you hold Jay Bunker downstairs in the basement, good luck ever putting any of your deployable shields safely there. Why? Because he's an exploding drone that bypasses your ADSs, your My Pancakes, and we've seen defenders, competent players, just head for the hills with their hair on fire because there's nothing they can do against this armored drone. But sadly, not available to us today, but still something that we can enjoy in the future. Starting upstairs into dorms, again, the primary bomb site for a lot of rosters. The lineup's pretty much normal, except for one Dark Horse making its way on through the Lord Tachanka. We've seen a lot of rosters flirt with this idea of bringing out more area denial. It's a great way at shutting down a long quarter. It's another way of locking down fatal funnels as well. If you're trying to push in through a door frame or a small room, it becomes very difficult to do when the floor is on fire. However, a Frost being 6-picked into, we've seen a lot of analysts debate on whether or not Frost is a viable operator in comp. She's been receiving a lot more play recently, and honestly, I am Team Frost in comp simply because she's a secondary shotgun as well as a deployable shield. She puts attackers into kind of an opportunity cost. If you go for a window vault, it forces you to look down at the ground instead of at the head level where your potential targets could be. But besides that, she's not particularly useful. You do have 2 deployable shields from Quintessentials, so a lot of, well, utility consumption VALORS needs to deal with, but it's just something we have to monitor moving forward.
Yeah, and I just quickly wanted to interject the point that you mentioned about Flores. I've had a few TTS scrims, and I think he's really going to shake up the meta, because when you talk about clearing something like Elbow, the main way that you accomplish that in a lot of times is maybe you'll have like your Nomad come into the bunker side and your tarps and try to flashbang that, get all the ADS and will My Magnets burnt, and then Ash and Zofia will step in, or maybe even Sledge with a set of frag grenades to try to open up and remove that shield after the ADS have been deterred. And Flores doesn't really work that way. You don't need flashbangs ahead of a Flores drone because he's not stopped by projectile catcher operators. You would have to bring a mute, which I think is really going to have a curious effect on the meta. And even then, we've seen a rise of Mute and Mozzie being played more often recently. So that could be something to keep an eye on. And if we have Flores available for the next TGS Open Series tournament, I would be really interested to see how that goes. But hey, Mai just ran out. He ran out right out of the SWAT tower door. What?
That's an incredibly intelligent play from VALORS. They spotted the camera early on, and they baited the run onto Mai. I mean, Mai is an incredible player, and if you put him into an awkward position, I mean, you can see exactly what the repercussions of that are. More members of Quintessential are starting to follow the reflag, eventually timing on through, but it's still not the position that you want to be if you're on a Quintessential roster. Why? Because you want to hold the fort with a man advantage. Unfortunately, it's still the man disadvantage. Flashbangs start to go off. Utility's starting to be burned. All those Melusi wubs are an incredible important part of this execute, not being addressed at all, and Badger starts to fly down through that south pit, taking that control and putting Quintessentials in a very awkward position, but they don't check for the Frostmat in south pit. The drop being confirmed, and now both our rosters being tied up in the man department.
Well, the welcome map might have just shifted the course of this round. VALORS were looking like they were approaching a steady pace. The 3-on-2 coming in for a game side execute, but now they've been forced to kind of drop back. It's your flank watch and your hard breach, but David makes quick use of that 5.56 as he fends off Abadu, who was still trapped playing behind the couch. Sheena! Ooh, quite a risky move as he'll try to jump through the rotate, but actually makes it on to the other side, now finding the Nomad. Gingy is gun up inside Trophy, but not able to yet shut down the Mute, and the Thermite still in the drone process. A peek from the Trophy connector will end Gingy's life, and now Sheena left to hold behind the shield. David, 2 smokes, but not any utility to try to clear the shield. The first smoke will go out, no ADS to deny it. Spot something up on the top of the rotate for the Nitro hole, but the options for David are so incredibly limited here. He's got to make a play, but the Banshee is not going to make this one easy. Sheena is actually pushed up to Bolo, playing close at the wardrobe in the meanwhile as the time continues to burn off. David will check the angle, but the smoke obscures his position. Now to rotate around to the main breach. It seems like he might be aware of Sheena's position, but still a little bit of uncertainty here, and the time is actually going to run out. So Thermite will choose not to peek.
So, Reese, I believe the rotation was bugged. They mentioned it earlier. There it is in all chat. That's an unfortunate scenario to be in. VALORS did so many things well in that round. They got the first 2 opening kills because Quintessential is playing a little bit too aggressive. Honestly, my talking points are going to be, well, Quintessentials, they kind of played so hyper-aggressive that they ended up losing control of the round, but I guess Lord Tachanka ended up blessing them with an awkward rotation in the end. A good play, but I can see why that VALORS ended up going for that 1v1 style execute onto Loyal, simply because that breach was locked, essentially. It was a closed door for them. Sure that they can see through it, but most rosters in that scenario, they're going to go for a simultaneous swing, one coming from Trophy, one coming from the breach. You apply pressure to that playable shield instantly, and that player, that Mute, won't be able to take those gunfights. But since the, well, breach was technically closed, what do you do in that scenario? You just have to force gunfights. It's a dangerous position to be in, but sometimes, you know, the cookie crumbles in a way that you just can't predict.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of the luck that you have to play with and see. Sometimes the wall getting open is not a sure thing, even if the defense can't stop it. Sometimes the game will put an end to it as well, just because it feels like it. And, you know, it's not your day, I suppose. The flip of the coin didn't end in your favor, but we'll have to see if that round does stick on the board. I wouldn't figure that it would get reset or we would start back at round number 1 just because the wall got open. Too late for a rehost. We had a pause called either for teams to talk with staff behind the scenes to try to figure out, you know, what the ruling on that is going to be. Or, you know, I couldn't say that this is, you know, early enough for a legitimate timeout. It's just too early at this point to call for one immediately. But a few bright spots. The Frost was really great inside Attic. Could not get the second pick, but she did get kind of the refrag, I suppose, in spirit with the Frostmat chopping off the leg of, was it the Maverick who tried to drop down into South Pit?
It was Badger, yeah. I mean, that's just the problem with one of the, you know, stepping stones of Valor, right? They had the man advantage by +2, and they're just starting to move a little bit too quick. We never saw drones come out after those 2 opening kills. Why? Because Valor's just assumed that their fortress was established. They're just going to continue on applying pressure, but that's the critical thing. is you have to apply pressure, not just with your eyeballs, not just by face checking, but by using those drones. You need to have this string of information. So I guess technically your flex support operators are able to go for those information. They can go for the aggressive challenges, which is something that a lot of teams aren't really comfortable setting up, because everybody's so used to Ashe gets droned in, she takes control, and then after that she either dies and is stuck on flank watch, and who's supposed to drone in? The support players.
Of course, that's the age-old question that we're always asking ourselves, and the drone economy is a big problem. You cannot afford to waste drones. It's one thing I always try to preach. It's drone with a purpose. Don't, just try to waste them off the rip. Don't drive them in. You really don't need to. A lot of times you can find out what the bomb site is just by a few of the reinforcements that you see upon entry to the building. One of the main giveaways for the basement site, of course, you can just see right from the main door. It's the fact that the laundry hatch gets reinforced off, because you don't want to allow that angle to contest. There's also problems that you can have if that hatch is open and there's no magnets or no ADS on the actual double door feeding into island. Well, if you have a Wamai that tries to play behind the bomb chassis, that's really free to get a frag grenade right on that position. Already a fight occurs as Mai tries to play sort of a loose kitchen roam, but talk about that drone economy already having a bit of it pinched away by the Melusi player, taking 2 for the count, maybe just missing that second one as it peeled off to the back of the kitchen, but there will be a ton of pressure applied, so Mai is not completely eliminated. She has not given up control or conceded control of the first floor in its entirety, still holding back as VALORS are a bit nervous about where the Melusi might be and how they turn to Dispatcher.
Well, we're talking about innovative ways of holding this bomb site. We're talking about extensions up into T3, not only for the primary bomb site, but as well as for the secondary. But here's another way of playing back to the original way of executing on this map, at least from a defending standpoint. You expand your defense up into meeting room, and you just hold the fort for as long as possible, sniping away those drones and wasting time. Hixer is in quite an awkward position, and Mai is going to make it even more awkward. A double swing for him, but David's able to get that refrag, but VALORS, they found themselves with a +2 opening duel back in round 1, and they get hit smack dab in the face with a reverse Uno card in round 2.
You lost the Havana Chief here, and that is not going to make life easy for the Valor offense, because you must secure control of the deeper area inside Freezer, oftentimes known as Oreo, before you're going to be able to open up the wall, and that's not even a sure thing. Somebody could play from the single panel wall and still stop the hard breach. Now that you've lost your Zofia, you have one operator to provide coverage for that. Getting open the wall close to the bomb chassis is really just a reality that's not going to strike true, as VALORS will make an adapt. Maybe thinking about a rotate down from main, but they've actually had the E-box hatch open, so that's one saving grace here. But against 4 defenders, the fact that there is still so much utility left up on the board, Abadu's got a plant denial for the E-box door, Sheena's got smoke canisters, only one, but with the time at 40 seconds, having 10 seconds of gas can ultimately make a huge difference.
You can call it the FBI open up, as they're the only ones left for VALORS. Are going to try to open up the solo wall, but unfortunately the Mute Jammer is going to stop that dead in the tracks. David's still going to go for it, but as soon as he hits that hammer, the pin, it won't be able to open up anything. A shotgun goes wide, Emilio finds one, and David's in a terrible position. Bullets raining all around him, eventually being felled by a shotgun. Quintessentials will now take 2 rounds in a row.
Well, I have to say, despite the sort of awkwardness with the breach not being open in round number 1, that second defense of the basement site was really strong from Quintessentials. The site hold was impeccable. They didn't allow the attackers really to get a solid foothold. Any beachhead inside Freezer, it was constantly being contested. And, well, you cannot ignore the fact that Mai picked off 2 kills on that flank clear, and I have to figure she probably got some utility with that play as well. The Melusi taking out the Nomad and another player, probably maybe got an air jab or 2. You surely would have gotten flashbangs by that point of the round, maybe some drones as well. And you take all of those factors and put them into consideration. It doesn't make life very easy for VALORS to try to coordinate an attack execute that's already been stunted in such a critical way.
I wonder if it's the fact that there's 2 old teammates on the side of Quintessentials, Abadu and Mai, who have a ton of experience playing with members of Valor. And at some point, you have to understand how your teammates are playing, particularly Abadu, who's a hard support player. He knows the ins and outs of his former teammates, particularly Badger, and he might be able to relay information to his other teammates, his new teammates on Quintessential, saying, hey, I expect my old teammates to push in these scenarios. If we roam over here in meeting room, we might be able to put them in a box where they're not going to be particularly comfortable. This is going to be quite tested as we move over to the tertiary bomb site into meeting room. Why is that? Because attacking teams have two avenues of pushing. You can either push in from the north side of the map through tower, or you push in the other tower, this small baby tower from the west side, and you apply pressure to the bomb site through these long angles. It's a great way of testing hard breachers, and if you're a defender, you might find new innovative ways of taking these gunfights, maybe a basement roam, and there is the basement room. It's going to come out from Abadu.
Well, this definitely strikes me as innovative. I think this is actually the first time that I've seen such a play, having an Ella actually be stationed below here. The thought on my mind, where's the drone? There's just no drone. It does not get droned out, and so Gingy dies for no reason. There's no way she had the air jab set up, and, you know, this could be a 2-kill situation for Abadu. Yes, he's stuck at Harry Potter, but he's got the FO12, and that gun can always make a difference. Pulls out the pistol. Still looking to contest with Hixer, but they aren't really giving up this position, and the L will actually challenge forward. This is such a desperate spot, but finally David will push down T1 stairs and collect the trade pick, but just as I say that, in the meanwhile, Sheena picks off one through the Shaiko wall from up on the A-box hatch.
It's all over the place, and it seems like the basement wants to be the home for Quintessentials as we see our Goyo starting to rotate through that scenario. VALORS have to be very careful of if they're going to continue to hold this basement, that they have some type of flank drone still established, because if they don't, Badger might get shot from behind. But anyways, VALORS are still continuously pushing through T1, trying to deal with this wall. Frag grenade goes out, addressing that Goyo shield, as well as that mute jammer. It's going to allow David to start to go for his hard breach. But where's that flank from Quintessentials? Everybody from VALORS was stacked up in T1, finally making a rotation as Hixer starts to move over towards the west side of the map, over towards the kitchen to maybe apply a little bit more pressure. He gets recalled back to his troops as we still stuck at a 3v3, entering in the execution phase of round 3.
That one unknown quantity mainly was Seraphina on her earlier roam, but she's actually just kind of pushed up to play for split control, which I like this play. The one kind of struggle you might have is the Vector can perform a little bit unwieldy when you're at such a range like across the meeting room. Badger has made a play to come down white, which makes me think this might be an adaptation to try to come in for a kitchen plant. The idea, though, where is David, and does he have the wherewithal to be able to actually get in kitchen promptly? It doesn't seem like it. Still playing a T1 as Emilio has been down, but that still is not enough of a scrap to give VALORS the advantage, as they're going to have to fight at a 2v2 with effectively a human drone within the objective. And now look at this, as Seraphina has managed to flank in, but the Vector finally will work for her. David, in the meanwhile, though, moves it into a 1v1. Nitro will get to confirm as the Goyo tries to dance behind the kitchen counter, and David comes through for the clutch. An impressive performance by the Thermite there, and saving the round at the end of the day.
That's so unfortunate for Seraphina and Quintessentials. That round was surely in the bag for them. They had so many things going well in the execute, but David is top fragging for VALORS. Every gunfight that David gets into, he just wins. He makes it look easy. However, Reese, I do have to be critical of VALORS for 1 second. You mentioned it during the midpoint of that round. Where on earth were those drones? If they wanted to have a primary strategy of pushing in through the basement, at least do your due diligence and drone it out. Why? Because there may be an atypical strategy where there's an FO12 shotgun sitting CQC by a door frame. Again, it's very unlikely. You're going to see it maybe 1 out of 10 rounds you play, but that one round that you play, it could be a factor, and indeed it was in this case. Now, VALORS were able to overcome it, but I think that's something that we need to look forward to in future rounds. Why? Because it can be quite a theme. If you're making misplays like that, missed drones, or even making a bad execution, what I mean by that is, why didn't VALORS decide to hard or soft breach one of the other walls over by J Bunker and take a gunfight from a different angle, apply pressures? And that's something you don't want to ever see, right? You don't want to just spot a drone, send out one of your Mozzie pests, and grab it for free. You know, it's just an awkward position to be in for VALORS.
What's going on with the drone counter?
What happened to our drone counter? Oh, what?
Did he get like an extra drone? His hicks are like credited. Well, you could just ignore the drone counter and just count them up manually, I guess, sort of the old-fashioned way. But I wanted to bring up a point that I've kind of talked about for some time here, and that's the fact that this is tournament play, and so you're probably going to come up against teams that play it a little bit more fast and loose, and so not droning in this environment is even more common. You always have to drone. It's one of the most underrated parts of Siege. You have to clear the map, and you need to be aware of defender positions, because as much as Siege kind of feels like a first-person shooter and sort of like Call of Duty sometimes with the way that people play it in the common day, avoiding drones, avoiding the droning. If you don't drone, you can't make a smart play. And if you don't do that, you're just asking for trouble, essentially. You're shaking hands with danger. But either way, despite the oddity going on with the drone counter, which maybe fixed itself, but maybe also didn't, we'll have the rest of the round conclude on time. The pace, 2 minutes to go. Things are still going on fairly rock steady, but there we go. Another appearance of the drone, and wow, what a shot there. Takes it right out of the equation. Great reaction from Beamed.
If I could summarize your point in a couple words, just don't make it a Plat 2 lobby and actually drone. And I also want to mention, my friend, that was an LMGE that you just saw. 150 round magazine and an ACOG.
Oh, yeah.
Incredibly impressive. And even better, a double kill with a frag grenade. Kobe has entered in our server. Emilio's now down but not out. He's in a position to get rezzed, but he won't call for any troops. Why? Because it's going to be a high risk reward res, and it's just something that you don't want to be in. There's that finisher. Jinzy's going to find the board as well, and Quintessential, only 2 of their operators left alive. Mai has been instrumental. Same thing can be said for Loyal, but are they going to be enough to find 4 kills? It's an awkward scenario to say the least.
Yeah, and the clutch is here. Luckily, Mai will pull away with 2 kills, and Sheena, quite something of a nitro cell and an impeccable play as a must-win scenario for VALORS gets entirely upended. I do not believe it. What just happened? That round turned around in an instant.
I just want to make sure, Reese, my monitor is on, right? That was a 2v4 that we just saw come back from. I mean, we even just said they're phenomenal players that were left alive. But were they good enough for a 2v4? Absolutely. An incredible showing of mechanical skill, but also a blunder on the side of VALORS. Why? Because they got a little bit carried away. They realized that they had the man advantage, and they went for a default plant. They went by the foosball plant, and they didn't cover their planter. They never put themselves in a scenario where they're holding crossfires, holding cutoffs, and making sure if Quintessential wanted to challenge that planter, they would have to do it away from cover. The whole strategy for Quintessentials there was to have that nitrocell collect with the planter, and everybody else on the side of VALORS was forced to take gunfights after that. So Quintessential played that perfectly. VALORS, they need to be prepared for a nitrocell to go out. You know that you was the operator left alive, and you have to address that scenario. Unfortunately, not done by VALORS, and they're going to find themselves in another round where they should have won a Dorms execute.
Well, I have to mention it here, Chief. It's almost required of me. The nitro cell, of course, makes an audio signature when you pull it out and you prepare to throw it. The Velcro. And sometimes it can be difficult to hear when you rip that nitro cell, but lucky for all of you who are still using your iPhone headphones, I've got one solution for you by the name of CantoLiving.com. If you're looking for the final piece for your work from home or gaming setup, you can find everything you need to build the best workstation or battle station at CantoLiving.com. You can check out their monitor mounts, speakers, and stands today if you'd like to learn more, and make sure that you don't end up with a nitro cell spoiling your plant adventures.
You can also set your monitor up on a stand so it's actually at eye level, so when that nitrocell does fly into your field of view, you can actually shoot it instead of your monitor being so low on a default stand, making your desk look ugly. But we digress, and so far VALORS are not going to digress at all from their execute. They're taking that control, still pushing in from the west. but that's all that they've accomplished. And you just start to open up more of these ceiling hatches. The first one gets opened up by David. Now, only one hard breacher, at least a traditional one being shown. That's a thermite. You still have a Maverick in case Cade was brought out by Quintessentials. Not currently being shown by the defensive team. And that's going to force Badger to do a very long task, opening up that meeting hatch. He does have to be very careful, though. There is lurking pressure on the other side of that soft wall. If Quintessential sets something up like a bullet hole or a punch hole, Mai can just go for an aggressive swing. Now, Mai's actually in a dangerous position as well. They can't rotate away from this gunfight. So if they take a gunfight and they win or lose, I mean, they're not going to be leaving that hole nonetheless.
Need to come through, but once more, it's Mai on the flank for 2 picks. This is really, at this point, VALORS just have to be ready for it. It's improper droning. They aren't being thorough enough, and it's punishing them. And there could be another pick as well here for Abadu, who's trying to play close with the shotgun. Beamed is prone. Abadu thinking about maybe falling back as David will approach to maybe get the hatch. As soon as you hear that exothermic begin to chime, that will be the call for Abadu to try to make his push, but maybe VALOR's not totally committing to it. We'll see the Surya Gate now reactivated. Beam will actually close the corner, walking through, tanking the damage from the Surya Gate, but though he does pick off Abadu, Emilio is in position for an immediate trade. The Surya Gates so far have been a major hiccup for VALORS as their performance and their progress has been kind of haltered. Hixer will actually run through the single door, tries to ash round the single panel corner, pops up, finds one, but traded out rather quickly there by Serafina, making an excellent hold, and David now again in the clutch. We saw him do it on the tertiary meeting hold, but can he win in this situation with only 15 seconds to go?
Leaving Pillar, trying to take a gunfight, but it's 180 crossfire for him. It's a full split up. He has to push these fights now, taking one by one. He spots both of them, flicking over to the one by Freezer, unable to land those shots. He'll end up falling. Quintessential will take another basement defense. Honestly, Reese, it seems like basement as well as dorms are just Command C, Command V for Quintessentials. They're doing the exact same style of defense. VALOR's are doing the exact same style of offense. Why that's important is because VALOR is making the same mistakes. They're not making adaptations, and they're not learning from those mistakes, and they're not evolving their attacks to address them. They're still just doing the same push over and over again, pushing in through Pillar, realizing that's mute jammed, forcing Hixer to swing, who's an incredible mechanical player. I mean, you saw him flick into that utility, that mute jammer on the wall, but he should have been challenging the priority, the player that's sitting close to that wall, putting David in a bad position. Again, David is fragging out of his mind, but he's playing Thermite. He shouldn't be the one that's top fragging.
No, he should not, and I gotta give David a little bit of credit there in that play. Though he missed the shots, I think he played that pretty well. He peeked the corner onto the Wamai was playing like elbow rotate, and that caused the Freezer player to actually challenge back, because if you're playing a crossfire, you kind of have to, shoot your gun and kill the opposition. But maybe if David was just a little bit more crack on, I think he probably had a good chance of winning that clutch, just because Quintessential kind of were a little bit desynced in the way that they had played that there. But I can't hark on their performance too much, because at the end of the day, it's a Quintessential round put on the board, and the second time that we've seen that basement site have such an instrumental prologue in Mai's double kill flank play. And there's just no one from VALORS, it seems like they can get on top of that, and Mai is looking to maybe just put a little bit more salt in the wound, playing a main door spawn kill. He's really sticking for it, and he'll pull away with Hixer's kill. How does he do this again and again? No drone, no intel, not a shred of information, and VALORS are gonna fall victim to it just one more time.
Mai doing Mai things. He's such a good player. He's so hyper-aggressive, but every gunfight he takes, he makes it look easy. VALORS can't even enter in the building. 3 of their teammates have fallen. Now make that 4. Mai is starting to eat up, and the only player in the building who stepped foot is Badger. On the other side of the map, he entered into T3. All of his friends are dead at the first 45 seconds of the round. It's a terrible place to be in. That frag grenade is going to give away his position. Mai eventually gets bullied into the ground. An incredible headshot by Badger, but still not a good position to be in. At least he's able to click some heads, but 4 more heads to go. One presents itself over by Green. A frag grenade pin is going to be pulled. It can actually find 2 targets, but he stands up straight into Emilio. Badger falls. round 6 in favor of Quintessentials, and it's a 5-1 for the defense.
That was something of a stellar first half performance for Quintessential Gamers as they make it look easy as is. Sheena 8-1. Really strong. And VALORS are just shaking at this point. I don't know what's going wrong. They aren't troning. There's no intel. The aggressive plays, I mean, it's swing or be swung in the current state of siege, and VALORS just cannot swing back hard enough. The attack, despite having superior gun power, it's the uncertainty and the lack of intel that's causing these situations. If they knew somebody was at main door, if you spawn peek main door, that's a free kill. I've seen it happen plenty of times, but there wasn't a drone because it doesn't seem like VALORS can really drone today. Their intel has been very lackluster, despite the fact that they were very dominant in round 1 and round 2, making it here into the winners finals. It just seems like that's all fell away, and maybe it's a lack of familiarity with the map. I can't really bail them out with that point because it is Oregon and everyone knows how to defend this map. At this point in Siege, if you can't play Oregon, you really shouldn't be a team. And I just quickly went and checked it. Yeah, this is VALOR's pick in the map beat. So, where is their attack performance?
Reese, you're always a really nice guy, and I know you just tried to justify VALOR's mistakes, but even you couldn't find a reason why the mistakes are being made, because honestly, there isn't. They're textbook mistakes, and again, we're talking about VALORS being a team with a ton of experience, not only with their roster, but just in general playing in the amateur scene. I mean, they've had phenomenal runs in T3, and they're just not showing that pedigree here today. Unfortunate, but at least there might be some bright side. It's the fact that they're now moving over to defense. So all those mistakes that they're making on attack, you can forget about it, and you can just move over to your new defending execute. It's going to be actually the original way of holding onto dorms. Back when we saw the new iteration of Oregon being showed, that's when you start to expand over into Armory. It was G2 that pioneered this style of play. Unfortunately, Quintessentials already knows how to address it. They've opened up that highway window. They have an upside-down rappel into Armory, and Hixer is in a dangerous position. He's going to attempt to rotate through his hatch, but that's where it gets even more awkward for him, as the hatch was being guarded from below. Loyal will finish off Hixer, and just like that, the extension out to the west, or the east, has been fully addressed.
It's a really capable clear of the admin, or rather the Armory side. We will see the Maestro get a little bit aggressive. He does net the trade, but it doesn't stop the killing field enough, but Genji will actually make that happen. Now the Zofia and the Nomad have been removed, and what has been a fairly equal round from the get-go. I have to praise the way that Quintessential cleared that. Everything was accounted for. A rotate through the soft wall at the top of Armory stairs, right under the cam, at satellite window. That was being watched by the sledge, as it so commonly is. There was somebody playing reverse repel on the window very passively, and all of those factors came in to guarantee that Hixer's life was taken and that he would go 1 in 7. Hard breach used on the wall. Let's hope that it does not actually stop this time, as we saw in the first round of play, and does properly get opened up. The 3-on-3, anything is possible. We've seen some impressive clutches up here on this top 4 site so far, but David is kind of on a bit of a killing spree so far, and with that all in hand, the Maestro can make a lot of things happen. This is a bit of an off-meta plant position if Sheena does choose to try to put the case down here, but I imagine they're going to probably adjust this, seeing as pressure to come in from attic could be relatively critical. There is no push coming in from the back of the attic itself, so you're really not going to have much coverage, but the plant is going to go down anyway.
And confirmed and stuck my finds too. Genji's now the only one left for Quintessential, claiming a kill of their own, but still a dangerous position to be in. Diffuser spotted out, but there's more rifle rounds impacting their body. Addressing another issue, Loyal is now fallen. A 1v1 confirmed, but 30 seconds left in this post plant, and Diffuser is on an island up in the middle of no man's land. Genji's going to have to execute on it. Maybe a tease of the Diffuser is a step in the right direction for them, but instead they're going to go for the gunfights. A wild spray, not connecting with anything. So now it comes down to Diffuser. It's a 7-second diffuse time with 14 seconds left on the clock. It is very doable. It's forcing Albin to go for the swing. He swings and is successful. Genji falls, and Quintessential, they'll be able to take that round.
Bit of a back and forth one there through the mid phase, but the case does get planted at the radio corner, and Quintessentials will now step on to match point, looking like they are going to make quick work of Valor's pick and make sure that we go to Clubhouse on double time. Basement up next to see if Valors have got any gas left in their Oregon tank. I would hope so for the sake of them. They played really good through the mid-round. Gingy got oh so many picks to even allow that to come within the realm of possibility in the one-on-one, but the Twitch played it about as good as you can. Passive as ever, waiting until she knew that the defender was not going to suddenly bail off of the plant, and though it came very close. I think maybe there would have been such a tiny sliver of a faction if the Wamai had managed to get that pick and got back on the case. There was about 8.5 seconds when the Twitch swung around the corner at Bolo. It might have been possible, but realistically there, the Twitch knew the time was low. She had to swing, and ultimately it gets the kill, it gets the round, and it puts Quintessential Gamers now on match point. The recovery for VALORS has not been here, though we had to ignore the mistakes they made in the first half. You cannot ignore their rounds and the position that set them up in here.
Jimmy Buckets played yesterday for VALORS. Tricky is his real name. And he's not the server at all for VALORS. So do we see substitutes currently playing? Or was Jimmy Buckets himself a substitute? I think that's something that we need to realize, that maybe VALORS is understaffed today. They're not playing with their full true roster, which might actually explain the communication errors that we've seen pop up both on attack and defense. Because if you don't have your true 5-man roster, sometimes communicating who's droning what angle you're holding can be very difficult to do. Because Siege has 1,000 things going on, and you as either a support player or an entry, you have to process all 1,000 things, but I promise you only 10 of those things are truly important at the exact same second, droning being one of them. So if you have to start to relay to your other teammates, hey, I need certain things done, it can start to draw away from other tasks that teammates need to address. But that's just maybe one excuse that we haven't yet figured out. VALORS, they're still holding the clock, and they're still holding their basement defense, absorbing a lot of time, 60 seconds now being spent, as Quintessential is trying to find an insertion.
They aren't really having the greatest job doing so. I've managed to net some damage on the Hixer, and I think the bigger win in the overall arc of things here is the fact that Pillar has been mostly given up. We don't see a Goyle played, so no deployable shield, so in reality you can't really play Pillar given the situation, so you end up sort of with this indirect hold. A player in E-box and another playing long 90 in the storage hallway to try to contest this. Quintessential Gamers maybe recognizing just a little bit that getting the E-box hatch open is going to be paramount to trying to take any control of Pillar ever in this round, if it's to happen. Serafina just trying to tickle the wall with the M4. Wamai was ready below, but Gingy will peel away before taking a bullet to the head. Now it's actually seen the Banshee cleared as well here. This could be an opportunity for Quintessentials to move up. The hatch has been opened, but not completely, perhaps lulling VALORS into a false sense of security to allow Emilio maybe the opportunity to get a kill here on the beam.
Emilio has to be careful in this scenario. Why? Because if VALOR's attackers were in the exact same position, that was David is stuck over in pillars with nowhere for him to go. Quintessentials has to be on top of this, making sure they don't find themselves in the exact same rut. Mai is sitting so close to a defender of VALORS, 1 meter away from each other. Perfect trigger discipline coming out from that Belusi of Beam. He's just going to wait and try to absorb time, but a smoke grenade cuts him off, forcing his rotation. He goes for the aggressive swing. Good trigger display by him, as well as connecting that kill. A Nitro Cell finds his target. It goes out down range, but still a cluster over here by E-Bonks. It's going to be Quintessentials trying to push on through. Diffuser's now been surrendered, stuck in the middle with nowhere for them to go, and VALORS, finally they address those issues. They're able to take round 8, temporarily stopping the bleeding, but they're still not out of the woods yet, as Quintessential still maintains match point.
And that slow pace there, wrapping up the round. Ultimately, Quintessentials demise, the fact that they had so many players stacked up inside pillar without really anywhere to go, anywhere to alleviate it. Nobody tried to open up the elbow wall after the rotation got reinforced off, so your options were relatively low. The player holding close really made a smart heads-up play, and I don't know if that round would have been won without that play. In the event that we got the replay for that, I would want to go back and see who got the pick after I think it was the Thermite tried to re-swing into E-Box, because I think that's what really wrapped it up. The fact that you get the first pick, somebody has to immediately attempt the swing and get a trade, but it doesn't happen. And so that gives Valor's 2 picks to work back off, and from there on, they have the man advantage, and so they can just play the trade game. Not the, it started a comeback, but it's well within the realm of possibility. You never want to say this is out of the question, out of the ballpark that a comeback could happen, because there have been so many situations in Siege where that sort of sense of apathy and, maybe a bit of ignorance thrown in there that you say, this team is just, we're out of their league. There's no chance that they can come back. It's only 4 rounds difference. And on Oregon defense, generally that's what we consider to be the margin of success for the defense. Already 1 has been obtained so far, and so if we are to play that game of round economics, this could be possible for VALORS if they want it to happen.
VALORS is changing up that defense. We saw that expansion into dorms, not to dorms, into armory. That's no longer an option for them. I also did like one thing that VALORS did. They made that long line of sight over here in South Pit. The east, most of those walls was opened up, and that really put Quintessential in an awkward position. We saw them go for a double smoke. It was Abadu forced to do that, and that's something you also don't ever want to see. I think Mai summarizes it best. An F in chat. Beam has the Nitro Cell gripped and ripped. Here's the repel on through. And now another opening down for Quintessentials. 2 unanswered kills is a dangerous position for Quintessential to be in. They need to start to address these kills. And with Beamed rotating away with no stoppage whatsoever, it's going to be Quintessentials. They now have to reestablish map control with a -2 man disadvantage.
A bit easier said than done at this point. You've lost your Maverick as well, so combine that with the Sledge. That's all of your grenades gone, and dangerous one for Sheena, close at the breach. VALORS aren't conceding any ground, and look at that! Such an auspicious play by Beam. He knows what he wants to do, but now Jinji taking a decent portion of damage. Getting into games is near impossible at this point. I'm not sure if I can see it happening, though. Taking Badger below 50. That makes it fairly easy to secure these 2 picks, and you don't have any sort of plant denial for vertical below. Sheena's gonna find Hixer, but there's the trade to come in from Beamed, leaving it up to the Thermite and the Twitch to see if they can secure the clutch. A set of 4 frag grenades, rather smokes, but just a back-to-back swing for Jinji and Beam. VALORS are going to string 2 rounds together.
I'm just going to move past my, needing himself. Mistakes happen. Seraphina is where I kind of want to start that breakdown, because the same problem that Valor had on their attack started to come through from Quintessential. Seraphina just decides to swing on through. She has no drone coverage anywhere near tower, and she meets her end by a Nitro Cell. Beamed hightails it out there with no refrag coming from Quintessentials. And at that point, what do you do if you're Quintessentials? Well, you have to start to make plays. You have to start to force the issue and just swing engagements. But Quintessentials continue to play that passively. Again, we keep talking about something similar. It's called taking controls in IGL, or just push, because at some point you have to realize our only option is to convert this 5v3 into a 3v3. At that point, we can slow down our execute. We can then start to try to go for a plant and cover that issue. But if we don't ever deal with that 3v5, I mean, we're just going to be rifling rounds to an opponent that has better positioning to us and a large man advantage. Now, curious point to make, though, is when Quintessential was on defense, they elected to go to what I refer to as the tertiary bomb site into meeting room, and Valor is going to go to the quaternary bomb site into dining. both sister bomb sites, and we see regions debate on whether or not meeting is the best bomb site, dining is the best bomb site. North America tends to go more towards meeting room, and Europe tends to go more towards dining room. The whole idea behind this bomb site is to use impact grenades to burn hard breach charges, and well, only one hard breacher being shown. That's the thermite.
So what do you think is the key difference in the way that you change your defense between holding and dining in kitchen compared to meeting in kitchen?
It's how you place deployable shields and who's playing behind the deployable shields. So when you're going into meeting room, you're doing what I call like the jack-in-a-box style of play, where you're springing up from your deployable shield and you're taking the gunfights directly. In dining room, you play into showers and you use that shield as just a coverage of bullets, so you can kind of jiggle peek around the shield and throw an impact grenade out and then return back to your shield while hoping that your ADSs don't get burned. Where on meeting room, you're doing the same thing, but a little bit more aggressive, because the attackers, if they're executing from the north through tower, they have one position to hold, and it's pretty much a free kill if, you know, the defender has any mechanical skill. Just like that.
Wow. That is something of a kill. The picks that you can get on the top floor here are oh so critically important. Without getting a kill, it's pretty much an inevitability that the attackers are going to be able to net this control. And Sheena does not get the kill, spots the foot of the Goyo, but just not prepared enough to end that fight. And so Beam just kind of left, sort of just crumbling, smoldering at the back corner of bunks. Any more time wasted, any kills are just complete cherries on top, as Gingy will push up to the top of the white stairs and gets another kill, adding on to the damage done by the vertical play in the extension for the VALORS defense. X are even thinking about a run out to tack on here at the main door. But look at the diffuser. It's in attic. Recovering that is not going to be easy. It's really going to be a tough move for somebody to get up there and recover it. Maya's droning. You have 60 seconds left. You have to make the decision. Are you going to push for frags? If that's so, work together here. Try to get the picks. The Maestro spotted, but he'll make the reaction just a second too late. Air jab goes up, but the Evil Eye has not been cleared, and Seraphina has no way of getting rid of this. To essentially fish in a barrel for the Nomad, who continues to wait. A shot through the wall could end her life. An impact will be used, and Seraphina, she makes the smart decision to double back into Smart Tower, but out of nowhere, Hixer is just going to challenge up the white stairs, and again, the diffuser is caught out without any reasonable way of Quintessential Gamers recovering it here. Seraphina wins a fight that she probably had no business in doing. 15 seconds to make this play. The barbed wire is going to add delay. She must go for the pick here in this moment. It'll be an active challenge. Hixer's waiting around the corner, but Seraphina, just better, just so much better. How does she know?
Oh, Reese. Wow. What a play by Seraphina. Incredible series by her. Honestly, either just Giga Brain plays, maybe using her headset, or information off a drone. Whatever allowed her to make that play was impeccable. I mean, at 15 seconds left from the clock, you said it best. It's probably not going in her favor. She got gifted a kill beforehand, and Laura Chachanka gives her a second one. A huge blunder being made by VALORS. And I was about to praise the VALORS defense. What they did upstairs was incredible. The way that they held the crossfires, the way even players who are stuck in a nook and cranny with nowhere to go, isolated in a corner, were able to take kills and waste more times, is exactly what you want to see out of a defense holding dining room. But Seraphina entered in the lobby, and honestly, I mean, that's a highlight reel to say the least. And you know what? You can always use Monster Cat for your highlight reels, even if you want to shout out he was just clicking heads the entire time. So if you want Monster Cat Gold, it's only $5 a month. There is no DMCA whatsoever, so you can throw it up on your stream, you can throw it up on your YouTube channel, and you can praise all of your friends, your players, and show off their skill with great music in the background.
Yes, we've got to give a huge amount of love to our sponsors for allowing us to put on this event and to overall make it possible. We do have the second map here in series up ahead of us. It'll be Clubhouse, the second map in the winner's bracket final. The maps, of course, as you can see here, this is not Valor's pick, so them losing out on this one does add a little bit to the element of uncertainty. If Valor's want to stay in the fight and have an opportunity to ride the wave through the upper bracket, they're going to have to make sure that they show what they're capable of on Clubhouse. Otherwise, Chief, there might not be a Cafe Dostoyevsky in this series.
It's starting to maybe look that way. I don't want to put VALORS, in the relegation bracket immediately going, to the losers bracket. I don't think that's going to happen. Again, VALORS was kind of our pick to move forward into the grand finals. And that was not the showing that we wanted out of that roster. Again, a plethora of mistakes were being made. We identified the droning errors being the biggest one. Unfortunately, Clubhouse will still have elements of that. You have to guarantee that nobody is lurking that top side, particularly if you're going into a basement execute. But that's going to be a conversation, something that we have to monitor throughout our Clubhouse. Thatcher, once again, being the primary ban for both of these rosters. Reese, earlier in the pregame, we were highlighting about how important Thatcher has been throughout a lot of teams in amateur play, being allowed to sneak through the ban phase. But here and today, it will not be.
Nope, at least not for these first two maps, as he's kicked off right from the beginning. And we'll have a Jackal band as well here. Maybe Quintessentials thinking that they want to play more of a Roman with how Mai has been playing. Effectively lights out on the defense so far. I think that Jackal band definitely makes a lot of sense. And if VALORS were slow on their droning, that does not give me a lot of confidence that they're going to be successful in clearing out a roamer, much less so when you don't have the Jackal and his Inox tracker, one of the most critical parts of every fully developed roam clear. You're going to be more reliant on an operator like the Dokkaebi, which effectively does not see play in the current state of the game, and you can sort of get by with having Nomad to lock off the flanks, but I don't think dialing back the roam clear is what VALORS necessarily need here on their Clubhouse attacks, because you just can't attack Clubhouse without clearing roamers, most especially on the basement. If you try to attack in the sort of, shove everything under the bed mentality, there's going to be flankers, there's going to be roamers, and you're going to get caught out when you try to go to execute.
I agree with your analysis of why Jackal was banned, Reese, but I'm a little bit concerned about the opportunity cost of that ban, particularly from the utility. Why? Habana and Maverick are going to be allowed to move through. And that's going to be something that's going to make defense practically impossible. I mean, you don't even need to really show an electric unit unless you're going to be placing the Cades over by the garage, putting them over by R1 and R2. Now, sure, you can go for an invulnerable Cade on the CCTV breach, but it's not going to really matter, particularly if you have a very competent Maverick who's able just to Maverick trick his way and bypass the electricity altogether. We're alluding to Maverick tricking or Bandit tricking in our pregame. That's not going to be even an option for either one of these rosters. So far, everything looking more or less traditional. If you wonder why David was shooting out that soft wall over to the east, there's two different reasons behind it. One, to allow sound to propagate to the other side of the wall. For whatever reason, would stop sound dead in its tracks here in Siege. And the other reason, probably the more crucial reason, is if Maverick is going for a trick, you can spot him easier with all that wall being shot away. And actually, the Nitrocell will have better propagation to the other side of the wall. Somehow, the shrapnel curves around the wood, around the wall. Again, from a physics standpoint, it doesn't make sense. That's just the way the engine works.
Yeah, we don't really raise too many questions here. You would have to have like a 10-year degree to be, a doctor
PhD.
in Siege and how everything works because of how inconsistent it is. But yeah, you're right on the money. This is dual purpose for intel to hear through the wall if there's, Maverick torching it or whatever, and also to make sure that the Maverick has about as difficult a life as possible in actually opening up this wall. A good litmus test for how effective it is how ugly it looks. If it looks, patchy, like, maybe your 2008 winter coat, that is about as good as you want to have it here then. So I think so far it has upset them and disturbed the process just a little bit. We'll actually see the mule jammer cleared. I think there was one placed by Badger early on for the CC breach, but one point that I quickly like to mention, we've talked about the impact of course, you banned the Jackal, so you don't have a second breacher banned. and that makes the breaching process a little bit easier. I would sort of counter that by saying, if you can't play CCTV with the wall open, you probably shouldn't be playing it at all, because it's common sense that the wall is going to be opened up every time. It's the attacker's problem if they don't get this wall open, and I don't know what David was thinking there, but swinging that wall as a smoke, you have to expect that there's going to be somebody peeking in there, but from now on, it just looks like VALORS can't defend this, can't hold back the pressure, as Sheena's going to pick away 2 kills, and now Hixer just suddenly gets trapped. He was caught in such an uncomfortable position for Master, and Abadu will fly right in the window as Quintessentials such a clinical attack.
That was an awkward defense, to say the least, coming from VALORS. It just started from the fact that VALORS had no control of their bomb site off the rip. That was stemming from their defense. They put practically all 4 of their defenders in the bomb site or in the adjacent area. The only one who was off site was Hixer, who was 2 rooms away. You can't really hold or contest from that exact same position. I will say, Maverick tricking on that east wall was a little awkward for Quintessential, but it actually gifted them the kill. And I have to be critical of David to swing that position. Why? Because that's the most common position to have somebody hold. Every single ranked player knows, oh, if you have a Maverick in play, just have a head level rappel and just look over towards the red door. Somebody at some point will start to investigate and you'll get a free kill. Unfortunately, that was the case for VALORS. They ended up losing that opening duel, and after that, the players on the site were forced to play aggressive, and they did play aggressive, but they lost every gunfight. A flawless round for Quintessential. They made it look easy. You called it a perfect execute, and indeed it was. Clinical was the word that you used, and it absolutely was.
Hard to get more decisive than that result. Quintessential Gamers winning the round before the CCTV breach had actually been fully opened. That is quite something of a result for them. As, I mean, they just dispatched with VALORS, who I don't think played the fallback game that well. Maybe it was the death of the smoke, then that sort of caused kind of like a guttural reaction. That's just like, we can't hold them back when they reach the walls of the site, so we have to stop this attack before it progresses to that stage. That would kind of be my thinking on the matter. But it didn't work for VALORS. They were not able to stop it before they reached the site. In fact, they weren't able to stop not even one player at all. Which doesn't bode well, because this is... Go ahead.
I want to say something. This is the perfect change-up between the issues of CCTV. Why? Because the way you hold Jim, an opposite bomb site, has a CCTV as cold, right? You expand into CCTV, you expand into cache as that fixed position, an extension of your bomb site, something that VALORS suffered with in the previous hold. Now they're going to have more control on this top floor, and I actually like that adaptation. However, I don't know if it's going to necessarily address the issues, because the issues were stemming from the fact that VALORS just kind of played it passively. It's really going to come down to how Hixer is playing over in the red stairs. He has a deployable shield and he has ADSs, but he's on an island by himself. One of those problems that needs to be addressed from round 1.
And you have to be really cognizant of the way that they're holding this. Of course, you know, we've seen this hold 1,000 times. It's kind of the contemporary way to play this attack, but I don't know what that was. Mai tried to go just run in, but again, it's that same problem where players don't get droned, and so they get free kills like Beamed, who strings 3 picks back-to-back in the daisy chain. Luckily, Sheena will net the trade, but this looks very confident for VALORS. Perhaps I spoke too soon, as Genji will challenge from scrap wall. And now, another kill for Sheena, mowing down VALORS. The advantage has been spoiled away. The only saving grace here is the fact that Diffuser is trapped inside of the bathroom, but that hasn't mattered. Last time Seraphina was in the clutch, and she'll have to do this all on her own. Sheena, the 3-piece, will remain as just that. The Iana, 2 frags, still in pocket, 100 health, 40 seconds. Mute just waiting, hoping to hide out inside of back lounge and wait in small stash. Stall out this round. Nade will fly through. Seraphina tried to cook it, but it went too far, and Badger will prevail. Another nade tossed back, but the ADS will deny it. out of utility for Seraphina. Would try to use the replicator here, but the time is frankly too low for that. VALORS are just going to play for the clutch, but hopping in, the danger of a possible frost. Matt will make sure that Seraphina is distracted, and David gets the kill.
Well, that was all over the place, Reese. Had no idea what transpired throughout that round. Why? Because it was all over the place. VALORS, I don't know if they necessarily addressed the issues from round number 1, even though they're able to win round number 2. Why? Because Quintessential just rushed in. They opened up East Spa Wall, or the West Spa Wall, and they flew into the big bathroom. They took gunfights without droning. They didn't even check their corners. And then all of a sudden, Quintessential realizes, oh, we don't have our diffuser. I guess I need to start to click heads. Lil Sheena does a wonderful job of that. A 3K for them just off the bat. I mean, just spotting pixels and collecting headshots. And VALORS looked a little scared and lost puppy dogs after that. But they realized that the saving grace was the fact that Quintessentials, again, went for that Hail Mary rush in through that spa wall, surrendering that diffuser, and VALORS just needed to sit on that one piece. They just sat back, relaxed, and allowed Quintessentials just to absorb all the time, try to take gunfights from positions that they just didn't have the advantage in. A good round, I guess, in the end, and VALORS was able to win it, but we still need to make sure that they address the issues of their bomb site, particularly being how do you actually hold your own heat, right? You have to create a strategy that wastes time. Unfortunately, the bans that we currently see really don't waste time. Mai should be able to open up that East Plat wall instantaneously, so VALORS needs to start to incorporate maybe deployable shields. You put one facing the East Breach, you try to play aggressive off it, going for a swing. Maybe you go for a Nitro Cell denial from underneath in through stock as well as through lounge. Again, you need to create a macro strategy that absorbs that clock.
That last round, it kind of strikes me, that was like what VALORS did on Oregon with the weird missed running and just making a play off of impulse. They just ran in, specifically Mai, 0-1 so far from the start. Breach has been open. We've been here before, Chief. Last time, David just wildly walked up the Zulu hallway and got his head chopped off by the repelled Sophia, as it so commonly is. Fool me once, shame on you. I mean, did it happen again, or
It was Garage.
But even still, I mean, you can't be challenging Breach. You're in Garage to waste time, and I don't know.
I mean, that's a problem with Garage presence, right, Reese? Like, what do you do up there? As soon as that wall's opened up, you're exposed to somebody coming from not only the East Main Breach, but somebody coming from the Garage door. Badger says hello and gets fried by his former teammate Abadu, who just walks in through stocks, beams in a terrible position over here in CCTV short, stuck between that door and that rotation. He's going to have to start to make a play, but taking damage from every single possible angle, eventually being felled. Hicks is on the other side of the map, now baiting a run out. He's going to double melee that window. He goes for the swing, but it's hurt immediately. He now falls. All going to be on David, stuck over by Red and SMG-11. 17 bullets is not going to be enough for him, as another teammate on teammate violence falls. Our former teammates, and Avenue finds a 2K in this round, just taking full control of this first floor.
Well, I imagine that's probably going to be the last time we'll see CCTV in this half. 2 rounds played, 2 defenses lost, and 2 flawless rounds in the pocket of the Quintessential Gamers, as they are just overpowered on CCTV. We'll hit the rotation now. Not a reattempt at CCTV, as you might imagine. The cache site has not worked out greatly so far for the VALORS defense. They're going to see what they can make of a basement hold, going down to the bottom floor and bringing out what looks like maybe something of an anchor setup. You don't have anything for a fully developed roam up top, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you might not have one lurker. Perhaps Hickser plays from master to cache and tries to waste time off the clock. We have seen Quintessentials kind of show in some rounds a willingness to go for more direct pushes. The CCTV attack is really well fleshed out. I mean, they do everything right. They get the wall open, they get control at master, and there's like it seems like VALORS don't quite have the recipe as of yet with how to shut that down, and they can't just they can't figure it out. They don't know, how to play a roam off the site that can shut them down. There has been, frankly, a heightened level of chemistry so far for VALORS, and I don't know.
Are those hatches going to get reinforced? Moto and Kitchen are still soft. Only one player top deck right now. Beamed has a long list of things he needs to do. VALORS players realize their mistake, and they're going to start to flood on top to directly deal with that one reinforcement. It seems like Quintessential may actually be aware of this, but Genji able to complete that reinforcement and return back to the bomb site. I will be critical of one more aspect of this VALORS defense. It's the fact that we currently see a Goyo shield placed in the long central corridor looking towards the west with a rotation placed there. Why that's a huge mistake is the fact that as soon as Quintessentials opens up that kitchen hatch, that Goyo shield's going to be exposed. We see this as a common strategy, but what you do, the adaptation you make, is you actually reinforce that wall so the attackers won't have a long line of sight, and you can still play that deployable shield. You can see Hixer on that shield right now, and there's the reinforcement. Good. It has been addressed, and a new reinforcement or new rotation has been made. Perfectly done by VALORS, identifying that mistake and addressing it. Now, the next thing that Quintessential needs to deal with is the fact that there's somebody roaming over towards the east side of the map, over by Strip Billiards.
That'll be Beamed, who has kind of just been set up here for the long run. I think he kind of got trapped up top when he had to reinforce the Moto drop, and so never really decided to rotate fully back. A drone will cruise into the bathroom. Miss Badger lands a Nitro, but Beam needs to be so careful. One is out on the chain repel, and one wrong move from Beamed could effectively release the intel of this position. Possibility of maybe a dirt take coming in, but a smoke canister is going to dissuade the Quintessentials' attack from approaching that route. The Nitro has just ground this rate to such a halt. Badger is playing very aggressive on the fringe. You can tell that Quintessentials really don't have a whole lot of control, and now Beam suddenly, the position is known, the call-out made, and Habadu adjusts.
Steps in the right direction for Valor. They have a man advantage. They're going to continue to grow. This is now a 2K for Badger. It's going to be an execute still on this top floor for Quintessentials, not even addressing those issues. Loyal drops the hatch, and he gets spelled instantaneously. VALORS will take round 4, but the unfortunate thing is that's the only time they'll be able to go to the basement here in regular play. They should have gone with the traditional site rotation. You go primary bomb site, secondary bomb site, tertiary bomb site, or any combination of those, because Quintessential looked a little bit slow on that basement execute. So now VALORS, their only option is going back to Gym, which they just won. And then after Gym, what on earth happens? Do you go to CCTV, a bomb site that you've lost twice, and pretty decisively at that? Or do you, pull an Enigma? Do you pull a Hail Mary and go to bar stock? Absolutely.
No.
I'd love to see a bar stock. So, if you're listening, VALORS, make Chief happy and deliver a bar stock. But again, it's not going to happen.
And I forgot I was going to mention this to you, because for those of you who don't know, us casters, behind the scenes, we love to see the weird off-played sites, so we get to, kind of analyze them. But I wanted to mention this to you, Chief. I had a T5 League game that we played, and this, I think the settings were wrong or something like that. And anyway, the site that we wanted to play ended up being locked, so we had to go to bar stock, and we actually won the round, and it was huge. It was actually like the coolest thing ever. We played a full setup, held off the attackers, and
a full setup in air quotes?
A full setup, yeah, in air quotes, aka an audible was called and Goyo shields were placed.
My condolences to the viewers who had to watch that abomination. Do you remember back in the day, like a couple years ago, back when we were still like Pro League, when ESL was running Pro League, and we would see LATAM kind of like contemplate the idea of running bar stock, and they'd have castle barricades pre-prepped, and they'd start to fly out every possible window. It was incredible to watch, but I think we're analyzing something that has, a pick rate of like -10%. Yes, I have a degree in finance, and I just call it -10%, sue me. But anyways, yeah, it's just something that just doesn't take place. It's so unlikely to be seen unless you're absolutely memeing. Dave is gonna meme, though, as he goes for a swing. High risk, high reward would be a compliment to call that play. unbridled aggression is a better way of putting it. Far too aggressive, but I mean, the silver lining is he didn't die.
Yeah, I'm talking about a gamble. He doesn't quite strike the jackpot, in fact, taking home more damage than he was able to dish out. Hold at the top of the red stairs. Now, Magnets are going to be sent through a flashbang for the follow-up, and now the lifeline grenade to fully clear out the shield. Wonder if it'll actually end up being cleared. It looks like it just detonates now. You can hear the signature noise of the Vulcan detonation. But VALORS have given up the CC side and fallen back from their extension to play within the bounds of the objective. That's true for the majority of the defenders, except for the roam component. Eamed is trying to come up from blue, but little does he know, Abadu was waiting on the stairs. Maybe there was a drone or a sound cue earlier here, Chief, that kind of gave away the ghost for Beamed. Still trying to work this flank. The time is rather low, though, so the more time that you spend baiting this, and Hixer is actually rotated through, which might cause enough of a distraction to allow the option and open the window for Beam to actually move through the door and take out Avenue. Either way, despite this kind of awkward standstill here, progress has got to be made on the site front. Because if you don't take this and you just spend the whole round baiting at bottom of Swamp for the Ash, and the Goyo actually does make it through now with Nitro in hand to try to toss it up, that's just more time that's being wasted. The Nitro will detonate, it takes out Serafina, and Jinji goes undroned behind the Logi desk. Two picks.
Unfortunate. You never want to be in that. I think the industry refers to that as an oof. That's just terrible, terrible positioning all around by Quintessential. There's now 2 of their troops left alive. 30 seconds left on the clock. Diffuser's ridden over in Logi. They're going to have to pick that up right now. Mayan's going to be tasked with doing that, but it's currently being covered. Jinji will now find a 3K in this round, and relocating into Logi. A swing for them is successful. A perfect headshot. And VALORS will take round 5. One of the most basic angles being shown. The Logi table, the desk. That's a silver play that everybody should know. I mean, if you've queued any rank game, there's always a Cav lurking in that spot. Sure, it's a why he was there scenario, because it's a terrible position to be in at the end of the day. If you get droned out behind that desk, you're going to get absolutely obliterated. But they didn't. Quintessential never identified that. VALOR's able to collect it for free. And another gym bedroom goes in their favor. And it's currently VALOR's leading the split. They've confirmed an even half for them. But if they're able to take round 6, able to finally win a cash CCTV, they'll be good standing moving to their attacking stint.
Well, we're back sort of on the subject of the site rotation, and quickly here, I just wanted to point out, or maybe we'll be stepping back, so that gives me a little bit more time to yap. For those of you who might be new to the game, I understand TGS runs multiple different titles. I know they have Hearthstone, they have a little bit of Counter-Strike, I've heard.
Valorant.
And of course, you can see in their Twitter name, yeah, Valorant. But the idea, to give a better picture of why teams are going to be picking CCTV in cash over bar and stock, which is known as the quaternary site, it's just never played. If you look at kind of the highest level of Siege competition, I don't really usually like to give these huge overarching statements, but bar stock almost never ever gets played. In the 6th Invitational, Siege's most premier tournament at the height of competition, effectively the World Championship, across all the maps that were played, of course there are 4 sites on each and every one of the maps, bar and stock was not played a single time. And a lot of the maps had upwards of 150 rounds played.
It's still my favorite. I love bar stock. Again, I always like when new people are introduced into this lovely esport. While it's technical and all over the place at times, convoluted to say the least, there's so much information that needs to be absorbed. It's always nice to welcome so many people into Rainbow Six Siege. So if you're just tuning in for the first time, hello, and hopefully you enjoy your stay. Now, Reese, there was a rehost called, and it seems like we might have some technical issues where we're unable to actually rehost and pause. Something's going on in this lobby, so what you see currently taking place in round 6 might not actually stand. We're just gonna have to wait for admin to end up confirming that, but we're just gonna assume things are gonna go like they have been. An angle being held over into red, and maybe more members of Valor want to find a cheeky angle, try to swing in through that door frame, but if they've learned their lessons from previous engagements, it's ill-advised.
A bomb has been located.
Typical stuff so far from the Valor's defense. As far as their hold goes in CCTV, Quintessential have had mighty pace so far in the way that they've attacked this. I mean, it's been just dominant. If there was one thing from Valor's that you had to change to try to slow down Quintessentials, maybe a difference in the way that they execute the strategy, what would it be?
Honestly, I would just apply pressure at every single scenario I do. Whenever you're executing, you have to just be putting as much downrange as possible, then that's rounds or forcing the defense or even attackers in awkward scenarios.
Okay. Well, we'll see if that actually does come to bear. So far, this defense is looking much, much better. The disconnect started it off, Quintessentials from an immediate point of disadvantage, and the big thing about that is I think Sheena was actually on one of the hard breachers, so now you really don't have any way of opening up an additional wall. The main pressure that you can apply here is going to be from the CCTV breach and as well out of the window, but now you've lost Emilio, and Serafina maybe tries to hop in, but gets shut down promptly as Valors are going to end up the final stage of the half with 4 rounds to their favor.
Now, they did get some assistance as Quintessential had a player disconnect in the middle of that round. So we will be taking a rehost, and what that means round 6 may not actually stand. So how rehosts work are, or technically the in-game pause, is if you have somebody disconnect, you can take your tactical pause and you are allowed to talk amongst yourselves. You can bring in your coach, you can break down your issues and wait 5 minutes for your player to return. But for whatever reason, we couldn't actually pause that game. So we're going to go to a full rehost, completely set up our lobby and kind of take the clock back, move into round 5 and just say, if you saw round 6, if you're watching the stream, we're going to have to, go Men in Black on you, show that little pin and zap your mind and go back in time.
We're getting a bit of disagreement as far as what is actually going to happen. Maybe they won't choose to go for the rehost at all. I suppose not. They're just going to kind of play it by hand. And I suppose for Quintessentials, you can kind of afford to do that at this point because you took Valor's map pick right out of the gate. So you have a little bit of a safety net to fall back on. Of course, Cafe Dostoyevsky is that decider map if we end up going there. If that is, Valor can win enough of their attacks. 3 would be needed. Sometimes considered the margin that the attackers are able to secure, but, in this sort of tournament style of play, there is a lot of elements of very aggressive plays and hero moments. Sometimes you call it kind of the qualifier style of play. It's do or die. You have to do something, so either way. Sometimes we step away from the realm of reality and things get a little bit more hairy. Quintessentials have started to play very aggressive. You can see the Mozzie is right at the end of the hallway, and a Z-Ping is on his position, I believe, so there could be room for a free pick here. It's just so long as somebody's actually in position. Mai has adjusted himself off of that Z-Ping, and now to hold from far, but Chief, the support that Mozzie has is so low. There's really nobody helping him out here, and without somebody to come up from the main stairs, I don't know what the Mozzie's going to be able to make happen. He gets droned out, and so the pressure it's got to be feeling here, but Mai will still get a pick anyway. A situation surely that should not have happened, and Mai will get 3 before he's shut down. You cannot let that happen, Valors. The Capital, the Ash, and the Zofia, all for the Mozzie, who was droned out behind the bar.
That was unfortunate, to say the least. A terrible position to be in. I mean, Mai's life was absolutely forfeit at that point. He was not leaving that scenario alive. Now, he will also be leaving in that body bag, but he took 3 members of Valor's down with him. Incredible. That's like playing soccer or water polo or hockey, and the goalie is nowhere to be seen, and you miss the kick. You miss the throw, and you miss the shot entirely. A dangerous position to be in for Valors now. Only 2 of their troops left alive, both of them being hard breachers. not the operators that you want in this scenario, not the best for taking on gunfights. Badger will swing for a successful gunfight, but unfortunately he won't find success in that. Now all on David, stuck over by the central stairs. Bullets starting to whiz over his position. A Malusi low blow is going to stop him dead in his tracks, unable to push on forward. Emilio gets a little bit too aggressive, trying to have a hero play, trying to pad his stats a little bit more. And the remaining members of Quintessential, they just need to play the time. They just need to absorb the clock as much as possible and allow David to make the play.
Got a lot of work cut out for him here. David must work a pick in order to make this even, remotely possible. 25 seconds. The case possession. It's about a flashbang. I've tried to toss it into blue, but it's absorbed by the ADS, and so that's one less piece of util that David will have. Another flashbang toss and a drone actually dropped in, but time is low here. I don't know if 10 seconds is enough to find 3 picks and blank all of a sudden. Serafina will come in through back Moto Hall. Guarantee that round is taken. Such a cavalier triumph for Mai playing behind the bar. That's a situation where it must be a sure thing. I think the fact that the bar wall from the kitchen hall wasn't open probably was the opening in that moment. And the fact that VALORS peaked 1 by 1. That's what you never do. That's the critical mistake, and that's how you let somebody like that hit a clip and make a hero play happen.
I mean, why didn't we see flashbangs go out? Why didn't we see the stun locks to the lifeline of Zofia? Why didn't we see a frag grenade? Or, as you just mentioned, at minimum, why didn't 3 members of VALORS push Mai at the same time? Sadly, mistakes were made, and that's something VALORS just gonna have to address. I will say, though, we were very critical of VALORS back on map number 1 of Oregon for having a lackluster drone economy, not really identifying the hole to Quintessential. And this round, they absolutely knew exactly what Quintessential was doing. Unfortunately, the information that they're relaying and how they're executing was that mistake. And again, sometimes in IGL, you have to say, all right, boys and girls, let's just stop for a second. We know where he is. Let's play together. Let's play as a team, because that's what we are. We aren't 5 individuals. We're one hive mind. We're one collective team, and we're going to play as one. That one mistake for VALORS basically shot themselves in the entire foot for round 7, and it's going to be, well, something that they need to look at moving forward. Now Quintessential going into their secondary bomb site upstairs, cache CCTV, and it's going to be more or less the same attacking lineup that VALORS saw when they were defending, when they were holding their own keep of CCTV. And most likely it's going to be the exact same play. What that means, it's going to be a Maverick drawing the line for Zofia on this elevated position and just baiting members of Quintessential to take this gunfight.
We've seen it work when it was Quintessentials out on the rappel, but nobody really pushing up the hallway yet to maybe show that there is a sense of aggression from top red. Sheena will play as standard behind the shield, or maybe just behind the metal cover, but we've actually got a shield placed in the middle of the room as Beamed finds Emilio on an off angle through the wall and out the door. That's a rare one. A lot of times you don't see much interplay through that double wall that feeds between the 2 sites, and unlike other sites, usually isn't open. Beamed is actually allowed to get another pick now, as Mai thought, my teammate is dead, so I kind of have to do something and not just be wet noodle. But it doesn't work out for the Cade because his gun power is too low, and I think the barricade kind of worked to benefit Beam there in that it obscured the Zofia's position.
Mixer so far has been struggling in map number 2. He's such an instrumental player so many times. I mean, he's mechanically gifted. If you ever seen him play in ranked or seen his highlight clips, I mean, you know how good he is. But so far, he hasn't found the entries as desired. He's forced Beam to step up, and Beam has done exactly that. Side control still mounting for VALORS as they have all cutoffs. They have started to apply pressure. A 360 crossfire is exactly what the doctor ordered for the attacking roster. Now they just need to start to take on gunfights, put Quintessential in bad positions, force them to swing, and that's exactly what Quintessential needs to do. Why? Because they have the man disadvantage. More of that Surya Torch goes off. Maverick continuously opening up this west wall, breaking down the fortifications once again of Quintessential.
trying his best to make sure this process is stalled. It's Serafina with a nitro that launches but fails to connect. And Serafina will pay dearly for that as Badger with the M4 in his arms will charge through and rifle down 2 quintessential defenders. Great shot there by Abadu, but not able to pick off a second, as the Maverick will earn himself a 3-piece on that cash entrance. Really strong round there for the offense as they dominate against what was a fairly lackluster cash hold. Not a whole lot of support from the top of the red stairs at the conclusion of that round, and VALORS finally have a little bit of gas in their tank. I don't imagine they're going to quickly forget what happened in their church clear, but earning that round win, I think, will help to ease the tensions a little bit.
Both defensive teams are struggling in cache CCTV, and it just comes down to the nature of the bomb site. The attackers can execute without really stepping foot into the map, right? They open up the east main breach without really needing to drone. As soon as that's opened up, you can see Zofia take long lines of sight, break down the bomb site, cut it in half, and then you also rotate more of your troops on over to the west, continuously doing that as well. The only part of the round where Valor has ever actually executed in the map that was dropping in through Logi, pushing in from behind through Master, and opening up that construction wall. And then at that point, Quintessential, it's like, well, bobbing for apples. You just reach on in, you grab a member of the defense, and you remove them from play one by one. Moving forward, Quintessential needs to find something, some way of wasting time, some way of taking aggressive fights. The way that Valor attempted to do that, that was a solo roam from Hixer over on the west side of the map, but since it was solo, he never really found the impact. Maybe you do a duo roam over here on Master side, just trying to hold construction as long as possible. If you're able to delay that push, if you're able to stop the hard breachers dead in their tracks, maybe you can just hold that bomb site by forcing Valor to just do a linear execute, fatal funneling in through the east main breach.
Maybe more of a conventional attack here as Hixer will move in. Really firm control of the map, but Sheena gets droned out. I don't know where he's going. He just races up the stairs like he doesn't know. Has no awareness that Hixer is in the middle of the fight. You know, maybe that's because it's so early in the round. With 30 seconds gone, perhaps you're not expecting an Ash to be in there, and maybe the ideal was Sheena gets in position for a lounge hold, but I don't know. You're not often really going to have any intel on lounge, so I suppose I could let that one slip, but I mean, Sheena just wasn't cautious enough. Moved too fast. Got cut down, and that's not the way that you want this round to begin if you are on the Quintessential line. They brought a little bit of intel in the form of Abadu, but Mai is going to swing out from the west main door. I'm not sure what exactly David was doing, but he's caught lacking, and so now some of your hard breach gets cut down, and that could have large implications when we talk about coming in to the cache side. If you don't have anything to open that wall, you're really going to be reliant on Jinji's success in using that secondary hard breach can opener, but we all know with the hatch below, using that hard breach tool is much easier said than done, and now Mai, with that pick on the Capital, Jinji doesn't even have an option to use that device. As this attack, Valor's starting to fall apart a little bit.
Reese, I don't think we'd be friends anymore. It's clearly a trampoline, not a can opener. But anyways, we don't really get to talk about that. As you mentioned, he just fell with all that utility. So no extra hard breach. And with that diffuser being surrendered a long time ago, Hixer has finally just retrieved it. And that wasted 23 seconds for Quintessential, not including that kill that Mai got as well. A vault in from Raptors being felled. Hixer on a swing, collects now 2. A perfect entry for him. And that's a 3K mounting for Hixer, forcing Amelia to come back down into that first floor, trying to directly deal with Garage, but he's taking round after round. The one thing that Hixer did was able to res his teammate back up to 20 HP, so Badger is alive and well once again. A Nitro Cell goes out, Beam needs to head for the hills. He rotates away, not getting collected by Nitro at all, but he's dashing around this corner, trying to find this gunfight. It's impeccable that he hits these shots, or it's imperative that he hits these shots.
Wow.
And he'll do exactly that. Emilio now falls. Badger will fall as well. still. It's Diffuser in control of the defense. Quintessential walking around with this Diffuser, shotgun in hand, trying to bait these swings, but so far not presenting themselves. Beam working their way closer on up. They can go for a stun lock, spotting the head. The pre-fires, they land, and they will fall. Beam will save the days for VALORS, propelling themselves over to match point.
Great work there on the execute. A difficult spot to be in as we hit the mid-round. It was a 4-on-3, but VALORS just have this energy. Electrifying to persevere, and you have to put some respect on Hixer's name. Maybe a slow start in the game, but stepping into Garage, he caught the rotation of the Echo dropping down off rafters, and he also got the other player, Mai, who tried to sneak in from Lounge to support that as well. So he got 2 picks for it. Yes, he got shut down, but he saved his teammate's life, who would have otherwise died to the Echo in that drop. He got the res off, and without that revive, I don't think there's a world where we see that round 1 for VALORS. But with the great play, all of a sudden, Hixer had the game sense and the know-how to make that work, and it will put us at 6-3. It's Quintessentials seeing a bit of a struggle to hold back the offensive tide from VALORS here on the Clubhouse Eve.
And that's why I hate calling out players. I rarely do it. I know what a lot of people are capable of. I called Hixer out, and you know what? He said, Chief, I appreciate that, and he starts to heat up. And we need to see more Hixer in this lobby. Again, he's so mechanically gifted, proven once again. Now, Quintessential, they're in a dire position. If they lose any rounds moving forward, map 2 will be VALORS and will be guaranteed to move into Cafe map number 3. A position that Quintessential doesn't really want to be in, but I guess you can call it the Collegiate Special. We see this all the time in Collegiate Rainbow Six Siege. You always win your opponent's map choice. For whatever reason, it tends to gravitate towards that, and maybe here and today, it might be the exact same scenario. The attacker is being released away from their spawn and allowed to start to execute onto the map. It's imperative, though, that they have a good drone economy, making sure nobody like Mai is lurking over here by the central stairway. He tries to take a gunfight to somebody who could be walking his way over to Chain Repel. Nobody will be doing that as of now, and Mai does have to be very careful with how he roams. I doubt he's going to be allowed to have a crazy 3K like he did in the previous round.
No, that really should not be allowed, and especially on match point, it's Valor who are looking for the closeout to try to get this over with and put us on a Cafe Dostoyevsky in the winner's bracket final. For those of you who maybe are just joining us and want a little bit of refresher here on the TGS Open Series 2-year anniversary tourney, it's a double elimination format. Mai is working his best efforts, but Beamed is just a little bit better prepared to shut him down. But yeah, double elimination. We're here in the winner's bracket. So far, both of these teams have gone undefeated with either a 7-2 or 7-3 scoreline in their earlier round 1 and round 2 games. For the first map, of course, we had a close fight. It was a 7-4, gone the way of Quintessentials, even when it was VALOR's map selection. But it seems like the tide has turned just a little bit on map number 2.
Vertical destruction taking place for VALOR, starting to remove that wooden ceiling away from Quintessential. Their rotations and the bomb sites can become a lot more difficult. And Quintessential, they can start to have nitro cells. They have 2 of them left. They originally started the round with 3. You can start to throw them up towards the kitchen using that soft floor against VALORS. But with the majority of that floor being removed, if you want to have that style of play, you're going to have to do that right now before more of that ceiling is taken away from you. Hixer works his way down the central stairs. Badger's already dropped in through the Moto hatch, and full control being established by VALORS. They are able to start to apply pressure to Quintessential defense, but the one step that VALOR still needs to address, that is going to be this triple wall of church. As soon as you're able to breach into that position, you can go for a default plant behind the bar or behind the black boxes. You still need to deal with Jaeger, Loyal playing that position, and Loyal's actually going to start to get aggressive, going for the swing into the Moto hatch, but he doesn't look at the elevated angle. Now 30 seconds left on the clock, and Quintessential needs to start to make plays.
That might have just done it there, that pick onto the swinging Jaeger. Great efforts by Abadu and Serafina, but David has the cutoff for the rotate, leaving only Serafina, the clutch player, who made it all happen and closed it out on map number 1. but it will not be possible a second time as VALORS take it a 7-3, bettering their performance on map number 2 and guaranteeing that we will see Cafe Dostoyevsky after all.
Exactly what we want to see from a upper bracket grand final. Both these rosters able to take maps upon their opponents, and now map 3 guaranteed, confirmed in the books. But honestly, Reese, there are concerns moving forward, particularly the drone economy. The way these teams are droning out the map, the attack is just looking a little awkward. They're stumbling in so many different scenarios, and why that's becoming concerning is Cafe has a lot of small corners where defense can be lurking in. You can couple that with nitrocell bonanzas, throwing nitrocells onto the floor above you, and there's just so many checklists that you need to do, particularly when you go for a kitchen execute. I mean, how do you clear out the entire map with bad droning? You don't.
No, you really don't. And if you can't drone properly on Clubhouse, you're going to have a lot of issues getting started. But with that being said, we have map number 3. It's Cafe, the decider here in the winner's bracket final, ahead of you after a short break. Don't go far.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the gaming stadium. Currently in the upper bracket grand finals. And boy, Reese, do we have a phenomenal series on our hand. Both rosters sitting at a 1-1 in this series as we move on to our final map of the upper bracket grand finals. Moving on to Cafe. Whoever wins this will be propelled into the grand final, and whoever loses is forced down into lower bracket to fight for their chances to actually re-enter into that grand final.
Of course, and thank you to everyone for jumping back on with us here at the commentary desk for the Decider map. We'd quickly just like to say a word for one of our sponsors, of course, allowing us to make this event possible, and the sponsor in particular that I want to talk about, it's got to be returnit.ca. If you want a fast and easy way to recycle that energy drink, can of pop, or juice box that you might have been finished refueling on with Return It Express, there's no sorting, no lines, and no handling cash, and refunds are deposited straight into your online bank account. You can drop off your empties at an express depot near you and go, and signing up, Chief, is fairly easy too. You could just head to returnit.ca and give yourself a bit of an express way for your empties to have a second life. It's very easy, Chief. Maybe we'll have to do it ourselves here at the end of the stream. I know I've got a few energy drinks definitely that I need to return myself.
You have like 8 energy drinks of broadcast, knowing you. So absolutely, you do need to go for the recycle. And it is incredibly easy. Unlike this series for both of our rosters, where they are struggling. Why are they struggling? Because both teams are just so good. You have 2 juggernauts fighting each other. They want to guarantee victory, but since they're so equally matched, it's very difficult to do exactly that. Earlier, Reese, we were alluding to some of the issues of Cafe. Now, if you actually watched one of our teams play in the Canadian Contenders League, that was VALORS. They would end up confirming their seed, moving into the actual league itself. But one thing that was very interesting is they never went downstairs to the kitchen. They went to reading room multiple times in a row. That was really their primary bomb site, and it was all over the place. They would have some phenomenal rounds where they were able to actually hold down their fortress, and other rounds where they almost got removed instantly. And why I bring that up now is that has been a theme for VALORS across both these maps, actually for both of these teams. And again, I'm just concerned that Cafe is going to start to devolve into the attackers forgetting about their drone economy, forgetting about droning altogether, and just losing really silly gunfights as a result.
Well, Chief, unfortunately, I have to cut you off because we've gotten some difficult news, an incoming transmission from production. There has been a technical issue with one of the players in the lobby. Unfortunately, that is going to result in a forfeiture. Just waiting on details now, which team is going to be forfeiting. So essentially what that situation will look like is, instead of there being the team that loses here in this series dropping down to the lower bracket final, we'll just have that cut out altogether and advance straight into the grand final and not have any waiting around. Unfortunate that it may be, unfortunately, that we would have a forfeit. You never like to see that. We had one last time in the grand finals, which was unfortunate. We were all really excited about the conclusion of that series. It has been announced Quintessential gamers have forfeit the tournament.
I'm in love with the quintessential roster. They look so good. We all know about VALORS, again, plethora of experience across amateur play, and quintessentials able to go toe to toe for them. I mean, that's something we just don't see every day. And I was really eager to see quintessentials go to the distance or give it their all in map 3. But, unfortunate things happen. Things are sometimes out of players' control, whether or not, as a PC nuking. I mean, you almost nuked your PC in our 5-minute break. You spilt water all over the place. So, mistakes happen. Things can,
Things happen.
go out of your control, and hopefully you recycle that water bottle.
Oh yeah, I'm a big recycler. We got a huge recycling culture here where I live in Oregon. But
Same in California.
with that being said, of course, all the forfeiture, all of the paperwork is being done for that right now, and we'll have the grand finals. But before we set that up, the final series, a best of 3 to finish off the 2-year TGS Anniversary Tournament, we'll be heading to a 10-minute break to prepare for that last series. Stick with us. Don't go far. Grab a few refreshments, and we'll be right back.